This is music, and this is non-fiction. Welcome to another first impressions video. In these videos, I share with you my first impressions of the many blind buys I've picked up lately. This time, I have an epic stack of CDs to talk about, all by Japanese rock and metal artists. So let's get down to business. Up first, Matt Jamie's. This is non-fiction. To my ears, this is a mix of modern hard rock and modern punk rock. It has a quite polished production, so I don't think like old school punk heads will like this. Um, there's some pop punk thrown in, not too much, and you also have elements from other genres. But to my ears, it does sound like kind of modern hard rock, modern punk rock, and I actually quite like it. It has good energy to it. Some of the songs are kind of quirky. Some of the songs are quite aggressive as well. And the vocalist, her voice, is going to be a challenge, I think, to some people because she sings at a kind of high register, but not falsetto. It's more like an extreme version of the kind of kawaii, squeaky voice. So I think it'll be a challenge to some people. I think her voice will be grating to some people. Personally, I quite like it because it has lots of attitude and it's quite expressive as well. And I think she drops a lot of F-bombs on here. There's a song called Fuck Forever. And I think it's just funny to hear somebody singing with this extremely kawaii kind of voice, dropping F-bombs all over the place. So I quite liked this one. It was good fun. Now there's a whole stack of CDs by Ningen Isu, a kind of a power trio. They are known as the Japanese Black Sabbath, but to my ears, they have their own thing going on. There is a Black Sabbath influence for sure, but they have their own thing going on, if you know what I mean. To my ears, their style is kind of a mix of like hard rock, doom metal, heavy metal, psychedelic rock, alternative rock, and a little bit of prog. So, obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So the first one is this one here, and this is to my ears this is more of a hard rock album than a metal album, and it's quite psychedelic sounding. The guitar tone is not that heavy; it's more twangy. Um, you have some pretty cool groovy riffs and some pretty cool breakdowns, so it is actually a quite enjoyable album. It's just not super heavy compared to some of their other stuff, but I quite like it. Um, this has to be an early album because they look young on here. Now they're kind of known as being old dudes playing heavy metal. So there you go. Now we have this one here. This is also more hard rocky to my ears. Quite tasty hard rock, if I'm being honest. You have some songs that have some cool riffs and some memorable riffs as well. There's a touch of new wave as well on this album, which I think is quite interesting. Um, and there's a touch of heavy metal on here. It's a little bit heavier than the previous one, but it's also more of a psychedelic kind of doom rock album, if you know what I mean. Uh, this one here, this one is heavier. This one has some straight up heavy metal riffs, like 80s metal even and some heavier hard rock riffs. The guitar tone is heavier on here too, and it's a little bit doomy. You have some doom metal elements on here. So this is a very good album as well. Now we have this album here with the disturbing but kind of cool cover artwork. This one starts out with just a really cool galloping heavy metal song. Uh, Really, really cool opener. There's a little bit of psychedelia on this album too. And you also have some kind of groovy southern rock influences. That's actually also present on some of the other albums, but it's a little bit more pronounced to my ears in this one. You have more of a twangy guitar tone though, not so much a super heavy guitar tone, more of a twangy one, but that's okay. And you do have some doom metal stuff on here, and the Black Sabbath influence is quite pronounced on this one too. Uh, there's even a little bit of a punky edge to this album, which is interesting. Quite enjoyable. Now there's this one here. Um, Pretty cool cover artwork, or it's just a picture, but it's pretty cool, kind of menacing in a way. I don't know why I think that, but I just do. So this one does have a kind of a heavy guitar tone, I would say. And you have both hard rock riffs and metal riffs, and sometimes it is difficult to tell the difference between hard rock and metal. And to my ears or in my worldview or whatever, hard rock and metal are kind of part of the same universe. So it's kind of a continuum, if you know what I mean, with metal just being a bit heavier than hard rock. But yeah, to me, it's all part of the metal universe. Hot take, maybe, I don't know. Um, this one has some kind of goofy and light-hearted songs, intertwined with some quite heavy songs too. Uh, there's some really cool riffs on this one as well, but it might be a little bit too quirky and light-hearted to some people. I quite enjoyed it. This one here, awesome cover artwork, fantastic cover artwork, pretty good music too, if I'm being honest. Uh, the guitar tone on this one is a heavy metal guitar tone. It's quite heavy. The riffage is quite heavy too. You also have some southern rock kind of songs on here too that are a little bit more groovy, which I appreciate. Um, they are it's just a really cool album. I really like this one. It's quite 70s rock inspired. Um, some of their earlier albums also have this kind of 70s rock influence. But it's a really cool album. I really like this one. Um, Overall, it is quite metallic. So 70s hard rock meets heavy metal, especially in the guitar tone. Uh, Now there's this one here, another cool photograph on the cover. So this one has a quite heavy guitar tone. The music is quite heavy too. It's you got lots of just metal riffs, and it's just a great album. I really like this album. I think this is a fantastic album. Just metal all over the place. And yeah, again, you do have, the psychedelic feel and so on and so forth, but that one leans more towards the metal side of things. Then there's this one here, kind of interesting, with this, I don't know, looks like Greedo here. I don't know what that's all about. Um, this has a kind of a strange, kind of organic production to it. It's interesting, but it just sounds kind of strange. But I guess it kind of fits the cover artwork, which looks strangely organic too. Um, this has again more of a twangy guitar tone and not so much a heavy guitar tone. Um, you do have a quite pronounced Black Sabbath influence in some of the songs, and I think that's cool. Um, this one uh, is more of a hard rock album, I would say. Kind of stoner rock too. So that's interesting. Uh, it's a very cool album though. I quite enjoy it, but it's one of the stranger sounding albums, if you know what I mean, but still good. So it's worth checking out for sure. And up next, we have this one here. They're going for a psychedelic kind of vibe, cover photo wise at least. Uh, this one is quite heavy though, and it's quite groovy as well. There's a pronounced Sabbath influence, and it has, I think you can even say it's kind of epic. I wouldn't call it epic doom metal, but it has some epic vibes to some of the songs. Uh, the atmosphere is quite dark on here too, and it's a really good album with just some heavy riffs. And this one has my favorite song, Heartless Scat. That's a great song. And most of the songs are almost as great as, I mean, it's a matter of personal taste and opinion, of course, but most of the songs are great songs on here. I like Heartless Scat the best, probably because it was the first Ningen Isu song I heard. It's a great song. It's I would say it's a doom metal song. Um, it's quite heavy. It has a heavy kind of chugging riff, and then in the bridge, it sounds like a completely different song. But at the same time, you know it's the same song, so it's really cool. Up next, there's this one here. Now, this one is quite doomy. It's quite heavy. You have um, again, kind of a mix of heavy metal and hard rock, but it leans a lot towards the doomy side of things, in my opinion. You do have some catchy melodic parts though, and it's kind of brooding in atmosphere. So it's a heavier album, it's a darker album, maybe a little bit more introspective, but really cool, quite heavy as well. And up next we have this one here. Now this one is it opens up with a song that sounds a bit like I've Got the Fire, so kind of groovy and upbeat. But overall, it's a heavier album. The guitar tone is a little bit heavier too. It's quite groovy as well. Um, so that's the kind of tone that's set by the opening track. You have some just chugging riffs, and there's a little bit more of a psychedelic feel to this. Um, the guitar tone is kind of heavy but kind of twangy, so it's kind of in between the two types of guitar tone that I've mentioned so far. So that's interesting. Um, it has kind of a barren production. It sounds kind of barren, especially compared to the weirdly organic one that I showed you earlier. Um, and this one is kind of proggy too. Um, kind of a prog rock album in a way. Prog rock meets hard rock, if that makes any sense. So another great album. And then there's this one here. Now this one is kind of hard rocky, kind of metal in places, but it's more hard rock in my opinion. Uh, it has kind of a disturbing feel to it, just disturbing vibes, and it's I would say it's kind of darkly psychedelic. It reminded me a little bit of a Danish band called El Runerod, not so much in the style, but in the kind of the dark, disturbing psychedelic vibe that it has. Um, kind of groovy as well, and mildly proggy. But yeah, it is kind of disturbing. Um, it has, I mean, this cover artwork is already kind of disturbing, and then on the back you have this here. So yeah, I think we're dealing with a nasty lyrical theme there. Up next, there's this one here. This awesome artwork too. I really like this cover artwork. Um, this one has a quite heavy guitar tone. You got doom metal all over the place. You got heavy metal all over the place as well. Uh, it's quite heavy. It's kind of aggressive in places too. So that's interesting. Some of the songs are aggressive. This one has quite a lot of 90s alternative rock going on too. But interesting album, quite enjoyable. I like it for sure. And then there is this one here. I don't know why this cover artwork reminds me a little bit of some of the Psychotic Waltz albums. This one here is very heavy. It's very doom. I mean, it's not like death metal heavy or death doom heavy, but for hard rock metal, it's quite heavy and quite doomy. Uh, it's almost sludgy in places. Again, it's not as heavy as sludge metal, but it's almost sludgy in places. You have some very metallic riffs on this one. This might be their heaviest sounding album that I've heard so far. I haven't heard their entire discography. They've put out a lot of stuff. But this is a fantastic album. Heavy, doomy, mildly sludgy, dark, Great stuff. And up next, we have this one here. Very cool cover artwork, kind of, I don't know, science fiction-y in a way. This one is also quite heavy. I wouldn't say it's not as heavy as the previous one, but it's more in that uh, department though. This one has more psychedelic stuff going on though. Um, I don't know if you would even say it has a little bit of stoner rock or whatever. But so this, I would say this is somewhere in between doom metal, hard rock, psychedelic hard rock. Another really enjoyable album though. This is good stuff. This is a great band. Uh, and the last one is this one here, and it's a compilation. Um, I think is it the it's not the 30th anniversary compilation album. I think it's the 20th or 25th or something. But it's very cool because you have some old songs on here. It has two discs, and the first disc has some quite old songs with really rough sounding production, kind of dirty production. So I think that's very interesting. And then of course you have, some more recent songs too. But yeah, so I think I don't know, this might be a good introduction to the band. I would definitely recommend picking up some of the more recent compilation albums. This one here, or maybe the even more recent one that has newer songs on it. So yeah, Ningen Isu, what a great power trio we're dealing with here. Now, one thing I noticed, now I didn't present the albums in any particular order, not in any chronological order or anything like that. But one thing I noticed is that it sounds like this band, like they're getting heavier with age. So their earlier stuff, a bit more twangy, a bit more um, hard rock, a bit more psychedelia, a bit more alternative rock too. And their later stuff is heavier. It's all out metal, um, gloomy, a little bit sludgy even. Still have some hard rock though, and they make some really cool ballads. And I would also say that not all of the albums I showed you, but almost all of them, there's at least one kind of thrash metal song on them, and I think that's very cool too. Some of them are better than others. Some of them have more of those kind of thrashy songs. So it's a band that they're actually quite consistent in their style, I would say, but they just draw on a lot of different genres and they kind of put it together into their own really cool style. I really like this band. I will see if I can pick up more of their stuff at some point. But anyways, let's move on to another band, Paradox Singularity. So kind of an album, yeah, not a mini album. It's an all-out album. This is really cool too. This, to my ears, is a mix of heavy metal and power metal, leaning maybe a little bit more towards the heavy metal side of things, but they have definitely been listening to some Halloween. They might also be inspired by Love Bites. I don't know. But it's great stuff. I really like this. The vocalist also has an interesting voice, I would say. She has more of a mid-range voice compared to Mad Jamie. But whenever the song calls for it, her singing becomes powerful. And when the song doesn't call for it, it's a little bit more laid back, in my opinion. Great guitar work, awesome guitar solos in particular, great songs too. If you like power metal, check this one out. This is a great album. And I also picked up this. It's a single, and then you have, which I see on a lot of Japanese singles, you have the songs repeated with out vocals. Some people have speculated it's if you want to do karaoke. Um, it might also be if you want to do a cover version, a vocals cover version on YouTube or something. Uh, I think it's interesting because you get to kind of notice more of the musical details. Anyways, uh, same style, progressive, not progressive, yeah, a little bit progressive, not a whole lot, but I was trying to say power metal and traditional heavy metal, and it works really well. I mean, this is a great band for sure. Uh, awesome stuff. Now we have this one here. The band is called Roz, I think. Loz, maybe. And it's called Still Fight for Survive. Now, this band is described as a hardcore band, and maybe they started out playing hardcore punk. But this album, to my ears, sounds more like rap metal, somewhere in between um, Rage Against the Machine styled rap metal and kind of new metal, but it doesn't have that kind of frat boy stupidity that certain new metal bands had, if you know what I mean. So they've just taken the kind of some of the groovy and bouncy riffs and some of the rapping stuff. I would say they sound more like Rage Against the Machine than Limp Bizkit, for example. Um, you do have some hardcore punk stuff every now and then. You also have some pop punk. You have some ska punk as well. So I would categorize this more as a kind of a rap metal album than a hardcore punk album, but I'm not the genre police. I do like it. I do think it has some cool stuff going on, especially the funkier Rage Against the Machine kind of songs. These guys also drop F bombs and S bombs and um, you're so stupid. I think they say that at some point in one of the songs. So they're trying to kind of go for also, you can see that still fight for survive. They're trying to go for a hardcore punk attitude, like, New York hardcore punk style. And you can make of that what you want. I think it's an enjoyable album in any case. It's not the worst rap metal I have heard. And up last, uh, kind of an EP, Fly High by uh, Sirius. This is quasi symphonic power metal, and it's actually quite good. Normally, I don't really like symphonic metal that much because in a lot of symphonic metal that I've heard at least, uh, a lot of the guitar riffs are kind of boring. They're just like power chords, and then all the interesting stuff is in the symphonic department, and then maybe in the vocals. But this one, musically, it sounds like these ladies have also heard a lot of Halloween. Nothing wrong with that. So kind of power metal, lots of cool stuff going on in the riffs, and then you have the symphonic elements just to add an epic feel, and they're more like in the background, which I appreciate. The vocalist has a very cool voice, but I think she might also be an acquired taste. There are cases where there's a bit of a Shakira quality to her singing, except she's much better in my opinion than Shakira. Uh, hot take, I know. But this is great power metal. I'm glad I picked this one up. This is a nice, short and sweet. I think it's like 16 or 17 minutes of power metal. So there you go. A good stack of CDs. Do check out Ningen Isu if you like old school doom metal with lots of elements from psychedelic rock, alternative rock, hard rock, heavy metal, you name it. Um, and Paradox and Sirius, uh, you got to keep an eye on those because I think they will do a lot of good stuff in the future. And Matt Jamie, she's mad as fuck and fucking awesome. Thanks for watching.